And now, Jacqueline Innocent, Senior Vice President, Integrated Programs, Habitat for Humanity International. Lai Guntswaya, Founder, House of Akina. David Senge, Chief Minister, Government of Sierra Leone. And Moderator, Caroline Nguyen, Managing Director, Millennium Challenge Corporation.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. The focus of this next panel is resilience. Resilience in infrastructure planning, in crisis response, and what the role and potential is for technology to help frontline communities cope. Look, our modern world puts a lot of stress on our communities, the infrastructure and the systems that weren't quite designed for it. Whether we're talking about climate-strengthened floods or heat waves, but also exogenous shocks from human conflict, from earthquakes, from migration. And so the question here is how to make communities, the people, the infrastructure, the systems, more resilient. I am thrilled to have these three esteemed speakers here. Each of you, in your own ways, is grappling with the question of how to build resilient and prosperous communities that can better withstand the shocks and the disasters of various forms. But before we get started, let me maybe start with an observation to frame the conversation, which is that collectively, we have traditionally been dealing with crises and exogenous shocks in a reactive way. Right? Whether we're talking about infrastructure planning or urban planning or service delivery, the extent to which our designs and planning built in scenarios has been variable at best and generally inadequate. That, thankfully, is beginning to change. There have been a lot of conversations about adaptation and resilience in recent years. And with that, there has been an increased understanding that forward planning and can really help reduce the impact of crises on human well-being, on infrastructure, and government pocketbooks, right? Like by some reports, every dollar that you put into crisis planning can actually save you $6 later on in the recovery. So there are a lot of things we can talk about, lots of threads we can pull on for this conversation, but let's start with technology. And let me ask our esteemed panel, what is the role of technology in helping communities become more resilient? In your view, what are the opportunities for innovation and technology to help us move from a reactive posture to a proactive posture? And can you cite some examples?
All right. Who goes first?
Chief Minister.
Look, thank you very much. I think there are fundamental values that speak about resilience and identities. And one of those is just a framework of thinking around inclusion and engagement and participation. Everybody will have seen that the world reached a really important milestone yesterday with the Pact for the Future. But embedded in the Pact for the Future, which came through a long period of negotiation among states, was the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration for the Future Generations. At the core of that, we have to ensure that the technology systems that we deploy work for everyone and work for young people. And yesterday I was expressing, and something I feel like it's a question of justice, is not every country in the world is eligible to make money on digital platforms through monetization. So Africa, 1.234 billion people, the median age is 19. Most of Afrobeats, all these creatives, we generate content. But many African countries and many of these young people don't make money from it. People are not going to invest when they can't make money. It's a simple decision for the tech company CEOs, and this is a message to the CEOs and owners of Google, YouTube, TikTok. You should just decide that we're going to allow monetization across the continent for the whole world. The issues of how we deal with the logistics, that's secondary. It's a principled position. If we do that, then we, by nature, when we think about inclusion, I call it radical inclusion, President Bill calls it radical inclusion, stopping at nothing to address these injustices. When we do that, by definition, you have resilience embedded in your solution.
And Chief Minister Singh, if I can stay with you for a minute here, because you talk about radical inclusion. Of course, a lot of your own work has focused on this, right? I wonder if you can share a bit more about the work that you're doing and cite maybe share some of the successes that you might highlight around inclusion.
Particularly with technology. When people think about technology, they think AI, that the people in Africa or in Sierra Leone are not going to use it. We forget that paper twist technology, 2G, SMS, USSD is technology. An example that we built was a USSD system. In the past, there's free quality school education in Sierra Leone, and people take exams, but they can't access their results. It takes $10, or it could take a long period of time. We built a system that meant that anybody, anywhere, could check their child's results for free using USSD and SMS. And that's how technology, through an inclusion framework, worked for everyone. Whether you were in Freetown, or you were in your village in Koindu, or up north, or down south, everybody had access to a powerful solution that will give them an answer immediately that allows them to make effective decisions. When we do this, when we build with the most vulnerable, the poorest, the women, the girls, the people with disabilities, those who are in hard-to-reach remote areas at the back of our mind, then the system works for everybody.
Thank you for that. That's a powerful example. If I could shift gears and turn maybe to Lai, because you've been focusing also on leveraging technology in the humanitarian context, and I wonder if you can share a bit on how you've seen technology reshape the humanitarian response efforts in recent years. In what areas has technology made the biggest differences, and how do you think about and maybe compensate for, right, the unequal access to data in digital systems?
Well, we don't have enough time to talk about compensating for the unequal access, but one of the key things I will point to that was severely disrupted within the humanitarian use case is drones for good. I mean, you know, we could fast forward to today and look at the news, and, you know, drones don't seem to have a good reputation at the moment. But we had that in mind in the early years, because we built with the community. And it's quite impressive to be sitting here with you, because one of your citizens was the first female graduate of the Drone and Data Academy in Malawi.
She was my employee.
Very good. So, you know, that's a clear example of real impact and building with community from the ground up. If we hadn't done that in the context of drones, I think it would be severe bad news for everyone involved. Community, government, private sector, everybody will literally be sitting uncomfortable right now. So I would point to drones as an example, as an emerging technology that was well embedded within the community and stands the test of time. And when we're talking about Africa, our roads are still being built, most of them. It's going to shape everything in terms of logistics, delivery, health. We're talking about our young people being brought along in terms of economy and startups. Logistics in startups, coffee, being anything at all you can think of requires logistics one way or the other. Drones is really gonna disrupt that for Africa in the years to come. We haven't even tipped or scratched the surface of where drone technology would take us. And if I could just jump quickly, now that's logistics. Let's talk about infrastructure, community infrastructure. That's changing as well in the context of the just transition and using renewables to power off-grid solutions that effectively communities can effectively live off-grid. Using renewables and still being able to communicate with data, real-time data. If anyone had a look at my bio, you would see the word deploying a fully decarbonized situational awareness single infrastructure. Lots of words, but what that really means is data can be communicated to and fro, and also safety and community safety can be embedded in one single infrastructure. Now we're talking about economy in terms of data, and we're also talking about safety in the context of young people, women, etc. I'll point to those two things, drones and then the just transition in the context of decarbonized infrastructures that will really make communities incredibly independent and connected.
Wonderful, thank you for that. keeping with community infrastructure, but shifting a little bit, and to say that one of the key elements of resilience in a crisis is, of course, housing and shelter, right? And Jacqueline, wonderful to have you here and from Habitat and for Humanity, and wondering if you can share a little bit about, as with weather shocks and other events, how is Habitat for Humanity innovating to build more resilient housing? And of course, mindful that there are so many more families, right, that simply need shelter as well.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Because one of the challenges we faced, our team has calculated that there's about at least $174 billion deficit in the amount of climate tech investment in the area of housing. And with the 100,000 homes we have to build globally per day to eventually get to a place where our full world population has access to some form of adequate housing, to leave out housing sort of doesn't make sense. So what our Terwilliger Center for Innovation in Housing focuses on is exactly what you said. But we do it by focusing on local solutions. We're really looking for people in the communities who understand the day-to-day challenge and the ways that we can help uplift those. We look to help them with design, we look to help connect them with resources, and then we look to try to bring their work to scale. And whether that is the paint that actually reduces the temperature in a home so that windows aren't open and we can actually reduce the amount of malaria that's going around. For example, whether it is twist blocks, which was actually very much something that came up from the community, and it's this idea of having this much lighter block that I'll oversimplify and say it's almost like a Lego block that anybody can help build, with the majority of the Global South building incrementally. We have to have solutions that actually meet what they need. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have as we try to get less reactive, more proactive. How do we look more at the Global South, the area that's most susceptible to the effects of what we've done to the planet, but also they're not getting the resources to actually adapt. When we look at the amount of money going to adaptation for vulnerable communities, when we look at the amount of money going to adaptation for the Global South, and then when we look at money going to housing, it's just really small. And I'll close by just sharing a little bit. There's also a whole bunch of other benefits. So one of the things we're doing is focusing on the over 1 billion people around the world who are living in informal settlements. And our team has found through research that this is what happens when you do a little bit of upgrading in those areas. You get a 4% increase in life expectancy, which is on average about 2.4 years. You actually see a 28% increase in the years of schooling of their children, which again affects the ability for communities to adapt some of these technology coming their way. We see a 10.5% increase in economic growth for that community, general region, sometimes country, and you save over 730,000 lives, and this is annually. And then you actually have 41.6 million more children in school.
Amazing.
That's almost 1 out of 6 out of our children that are school age in the world, just because we took the time to focus some of these resources that we've been talking about on the solutions of those who are most vulnerable and actually need it the most.
Amazing.
That's amazing, and so important to think about the local context. What is necessary to scale things up and be responsive to the local community that is actually needing the solutions. We are woefully out of time, and so which is very unfortunate. But let me maybe just close by thanking the panel and each of you for the amazing and important work that you're doing, and please join me in thanking our panel.
Well done. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.